Welcome to the Public Health Action Curriculum for Teens, or PHACT. PHACT is a free, video-based public health curriculum designed for teens to learn about the public health issues that impact communities across New Mexico. PHACT was created by the University of New Mexico Center for Disaster Medicine and the Albuquerque University of New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps Unit. For general information and for updates, please feel free to visit our website at unmcdm.org. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Public Health Action Curriculum for Teens. Welcome to Module 5, Disaster Preparedness. This is the last module of PHACT. Congratulations for making it so far. Module 5 consists of 3 videos. What is a disaster? Where can I get accurate and official information about disasters and emergencies? And what can I do to be prepared? By the end of this module, you should know what a disaster is and the problems they cause, know the difference between natural and man-made disasters, know how to get accurate disaster information, and know how to prepare a disaster plan and kit for you and your family.
A disaster is defined as something that disrupts normal conditions and overwhelms a community or society so that it is unable to function on its own. Disasters can cause loss of life, damage to property, and negative environmental and economic impacts. Disasters can cause fear, panic, and anger in people. Disasters are different from emergencies. An emergency is a situation in which there is immediate risk and an intervention is needed, but the ability of the community to respond is not overwhelmed. A good example of an emergency is an apartment fire. Many agencies may respond to the fire, but the resources such as fire equipment, firefighters, and supplies are sufficient and the emergency can be managed well by the community. A disaster, on the other hand, overwhelms community resources, requires many agencies to coordinate and work together to help, and requires outside resources to be used. Disasters include both human-caused disasters and natural disasters. Some examples of human-caused disasters are industrial accidents, transportation accidents, building collapses, and terrorism. Natural disasters include biological events such as disease outbreaks, geophysical events such as earthquakes, climatological events such as wildfires and drought, or hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods. Disasters are usually complicated events that have many consequences. One of those consequences may be that the infrastructure of a community is completely destroyed. Infrastructure that can be damaged includes roads and power lines, but also healthcare delivery systems, drinking water systems, sewage systems, and electrical grids, which all may be completely destroyed. Because disasters can cause a lot of emotions, such as panic, fear, and anger, it is important for those leading the disaster response to effectively communicate with the community in order to ease their concerns. Communication should be accurate, timely, and honest. Information should also be verified before it is communicated to the public. There should be multiple communication methods used to deliver messages to the public. Television, radio, newspaper, and social media are some of the communication tools used during disasters. It is also important to allow for communication from the public to the officials as well. Setting up information hotlines and social media sites such as Twitter allow for two-way communication between the public and the officials. The impact of disasters on a community can be so huge that outside help is needed. This help can come from the U.S. government, the state government, businesses, charities, and churches. These agencies provide needed resources to assist the affected community. These resources can include equipment, money, food and water, emergency supplies, extra people, and disaster knowledge and experience. When resources are used from outside the affected community, there may be a process in place for requesting them and organizing them. Sometimes resources are used from neighboring communities and states through emergency contracts that are made before and during the disaster. When U.S. government help is required, there is a formal process that must be followed. This process is set forth by the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief Act, a federal law that lays out how the federal government can help states during disasters. When a disaster strikes or is going to strike, such as with a hurricane, community officials work with the governor of their state to determine if outside help will be needed. The governor of the state must be able to prove that the severity and size of the disaster will be beyond the abilities of the community and the state to respond. If this is the case, the governor will make a formal written request to the President of the United States requesting a presidential disaster declaration. The President will work with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to review the situation. If approved, a presidential disaster declaration allows for federal resources to be sent to the state in order to ensure there is adequate help for the disaster and recovery. Disasters are complicated and complex events with multiple response agencies and levels of government involved. Because of this, it is necessary for there to be a common approach to the response. The United States developed a system for responding to disasters called the National Incident Management System, or NIMS. NIMS allows agencies to work together seamlessly in order to reduce the negative consequences of disasters. NIMS is used for everything from large-scale disasters to smaller emergency incidents. NIMS began back in the 1970s during the devastating California wildfires. Multiple agencies responded to these wildfires and did their best to work together, but lack of coordination and communication affected their success. 16 lives were lost, 700 structures were destroyed, and 1.5 million acres of land were burned. Congress took action and required the United States Forest Service to create a new system of response. The U.S. Forest Service and multiple agencies from California worked together to create a new system to provide common language, job responsibilities, and organizational structure for agencies to work under. The system was so successful that it was adopted as the national system for responding to all disasters.
The initial folks who respond to a disaster start the process. They're the ones who declare that this is a disaster and that we need resources from the outside to come in and help. And once they do that, we put the National Incident Management System in place. It creates roles for everybody, so everyone has a job, and everyone has a hierarchy of people that they report to. So it's kind of a plug-and-play system, not unlike your gaming systems are. So you can make them bigger or smaller as you need to.
Today, NIMS provides a national framework for all levels of government and private agencies to work together to manage incidents no matter what their size, location, or level of complexity. NIMS training is provided to workers in public health, healthcare, public safety, engineering, government, charities, and many others. When an emergency or disaster strikes, it is important to get accurate information out to the public as quickly as possible. Disasters tend to be very popular stories in the media, and with social media and 24-hour news, information gets out quickly, sometimes without verifying that information is correct. Disasters and emergencies can be fluid situations that can change quickly as well. Because of this, there can be misinformation, rumors, and myths about disasters that get played out in the media. All of this information can be difficult to sift through, so it is important to know who you can trust. We are going to give you some resources for accurate and official information. Before a disaster strikes, familiarize yourself with some of these official sites as they will provide useful information before, during, and after a disaster. Many agencies responsible for information during disasters have websites that can provide useful and accurate information that will be verified before it is put out to the public. This includes the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the National Weather Service, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the American Red Cross. Local television news, local radio, and weather sources are also good for information as they are most familiar with the local area. In New Mexico, this would be stations like KOB, KOAT, and KRQE. Urgent information like weather warnings may also be scrolled across the bottom of the television screen. True emergency information will be displayed across the TV screen together with a loud warning alert sound. These emergency messages may also interrupt the show in progress. The National Weather Channel and national news channels can also be good sources. However, more and more national news sites rush to be the first to break news and may do so before the information is verified as correct. Stations such as CNN, MSNBC, and Fox will all cover significant national events and many presidentially declared disasters. Most of the sources we have mentioned will also have sites on social media. Social media sites such as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are great ways to get information quickly. Hashtags can also be used on social media to search or share information about a certain event or disaster. Hashtag Hurricane Sandy or hashtag UNM Bosque Fire are examples. However, it is important to realize that social media is free for all to post, and in many cases there are myths, rumors, and inaccuracies posted to these sites. This information can quickly spread to thousands or even millions of people. So with that said, realize that not everything you read is true. Following official sites is the best way to ensure that the information you receive is accurate. Official sites should verify all the information before they post it.
Take a moment to think about what you need in your everyday life. It is important to realize that during a disaster, you may not have access to these everyday conveniences. This can be overwhelming, uncomfortable, and scary. Being prepared before the disaster can help save lives and prevent injuries. Building a family emergency plan is an excellent way to ensure that you and your family are ready. Here are some tips to help you start to prepare. It is recommended to start small and build it over time. Much of what you do to prepare doesn't cost a thing. It just requires a few minutes to sit down with your family and have a conversation about the plan. Start with a family communication plan. This is how you will contact one another in different situations.
Write phone numbers and email addresses down on a piece of paper. Don't rely on your phone. You may not have your phone or the battery may be dead. Have a common out-of-town contact to call, text, or email if disaster strikes. It may be easier to make a long-distance phone call rather than local call when a disaster has occurred. Know that texting works best in a disaster. Put the communication plan in with your family disaster plan.
For your family disaster plan,
choose a meeting place. Pick a location that is close to your home but far enough from it in case of fire, like your neighbor's house or the mailbox. Choose a secondary meeting place just in case that place is not available, like a nearby church or school. Write down medications and medical conditions. Include your doctor's information and other useful medical and personal information. Make copies of important documents and create a folder for them so you can take them with you if you leave. Make an emergency kit. These kits can be expensive to buy, but you can make your own on a budget. Build the kit slowly over time, gathering the essential items first. Think about the basics that you need to survive: food, water, medication, and any other life-sustaining items that you or your loved ones may require. You should aim to store 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days. You should replace this water every now and then to ensure that a fresh supply is ready. Instead of buying new bottles, use water from the tap to refill your clean containers. Store them in a shady place or dark cabinet to slow the evaporation process down. This water will be for drinking and sanitation. You should try to have at least a 3-day supply of non-perishable foods. Canned foods, dried foods such as nuts, beef jerky, and dried fruits, granola bars, fruit bars, and peanut butter crackers are good choices. Use food that has a long shelf life and a long expiration date. Store the food in a closed container with a can opener and check expiration dates twice a year. A flashlight and extra batteries are a must in an emergency kit. A first aid kit is another item for your emergency kit that you can build yourself. The essential items are Band-Aids, gauze or cotton squares, bandage tape, compression wraps, aspirin for aches and fevers, ointment or Vaseline, tweezers, scissors, a small container of bleach, hand sanitizer, iodine for wound cleaning, and a waterproof container. Many of these items can be purchased from your local dollar store. You may have some of these items in your home already. Other things that you could include in your first aid kit are latex or rubber gloves, sewing needles and thread, antihistamine, antidiarrheal medication, face masks, and a heat blanket. First aid kits can also be purchased for anywhere from $15 to $20 from a local Walmart, Walgreens, or other drugstore. A referee's whistle should be included in your emergency kit to signal for help. You can also include dust masks, plastic sheeting, and duct tape. For personal sanitation and cleaning, include garbage bags, feminine hygiene products, paper towels, toilet paper, and plastic ties. A wrench or pliers can be included to turn off utilities or make small repairs. A road map will be helpful if you must evacuate by car. Remember that phones and GPS devices may not work during disasters. A battery-powered or hand-cranked radio is a good idea to have in case of a power failure, or even a special weather radio with tone alert. Remember to include extra batteries. Additional items that your family may need could include diapers and infant formula, prescription medications, important family documents or records, matches, change of clothing, cash in case ATM machines are not working, and food and water for your pets. Remember to check on your neighbors if possible during times of crisis. They may not have family nearby and may need assistance too. Elderly neighbors can be extremely vulnerable during emergencies and disasters and may not always ask for help.
All disasters start locally. And what does that mean? That means that in the beginning of a disaster, we're not going to have help from external to our own community. So neighbors helping neighbors is going to be one of the most important aspects. So if a disaster happens in your community, make sure that you reach out to the vulnerable people in your neighborhood, perhaps the elderly, people with young children, see if they need help. And I challenge you to go home and create your family emergency plan. What will you do? What will your family do in a disaster?
Congratulations on completing Module 5. The action step for Module 5 is to create a family disaster plan. The best way to start is by simply starting the discussion. Sit down with your family or those who you live with and decide on a primary and secondary meeting place. Write down important phone numbers, medications, and other useful information for everyone in your home. Then start putting together your emergency kit, just as discussed in the module. Start small and compile over time. Use what is available to you in your home and buy things when you are able. And remember, don't forget about pets, the elderly, or young children. Thank you for participating in PHACT.